Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a build tutorial, and this build tutorial is not to build a certain type of robot or just one robot. It's supposed to be a general tutorial on how I build robots and general tips and tricks that I want to show. So here I've set up a couple of tank treads, and I'm going to go ahead and build probably an SMG tank out of this and try to teach you guys a little bit about the ins and outs of how I build robots. So one of the first things I do is I pick my movement type. Already I've picked out that I'm going to use tank treads, and I've set up the chassis. So with that, let's go ahead and get started on building the chassis and the frame, which I usually view as being more important than figuring out where your weapons are going to go. That usually comes last. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of chassis and frame here, and I'll be right back. So I went and built out the chassis a little bit more here. This next step is going to be a little bit more in-depth in terms of technical builds. Quite a few of you already probably know about rod forcing, and that is what you do basically is you use rods to try and redirect damage and how your robot is held together. So this rod that I just placed in here, I've connected it to this block, which is connected solely to the tank tread, and that's going to cause it to be anchored over here and damaged. If we took a big hit back here and a bunch of frame was blasted off, this is still connected to the center of the robot, and it helps keep your robot together for longer. So I'm also going to go ahead and do a bit of rod forcing up here on the front tank treads to help hold them together as well, like this. And so now what we've kind of done is we've anchored the front tank treads and the back tank treads all to the center of the robot, and it's kind of holding it together like a skeleton. Another thing I like to do, which I usually do more on long builds like airplanes or something, is interweaving rods like this. So later we're going to add a bunch of chassis cubes. We're going to add another layer on top of this, like so. And what this rod forcing is doing is it forces damage for it to cut the robot in half. It has to travel in a zigzag back and forth in order to destroy all the rods. It's a longer distance for the damage to travel. So we're not adding more health to the robot, we're making it so it's harder for it to break apart. It's a mesh, it's a weave, and it's a very strong way to keep your robot together, and it adds health without actually adding any armor or taking up extra CPU. So I started adding on the second layer of the chassis here, and one important thing I want to point out is to put a prism next to this prism here, so that it doesn't connect. We're separating it so that damage applied to this block will not transfer to this block, and it won't destroy the rod. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the second layer of the chassis, and I'll be right back. So I've almost finished up the second layer of the chassis, and I just wanted to bring you back to show you a little bit more of how to do rod forcing. So here I'm adding a second layer of rod forcing. It's probably a little bit excessive for this build, but I just want to kind of show you guys the process behind how it works. So we're adding more rods, and it's causing damage redirection. It helps just tie this whole piece together. When I do it over here in the middle, we're helping to tie this section of the robot together as well. And we can extend it backwards farther actually if we want to. We can use like the short rods to do that. Again, this is a bit excessive and gratuitous, but it's mostly I'm just trying to show off how the damage redirection and rod forcing works. And the way I've got this set up, it'll make it very, very hard to cut the robot in half along this axis, because you have to destroy all of these rods individually to sever the front half of the robot from the back half. So you can also do rod forcing left to right. You can do it to connect the sides of the robot and keep those connected together. I kind of filled up the space in between here, but I can do it on the edges. Usually doing left to right, that works best on mechs, so mech legs, and you can connect the two mech legs together, which is a very good way to improve the strength of your mechs and stop them from being cut in half. We can also use that a little bit here on the tank to try and help the tank stay together left to right. Again, arrow rods, they don't add any health to the robot at all, but they just change the way the damage flows through the chassis. I'm going to go ahead and put on a third layer of armor onto the robot to build onto the chassis. And after we do that, we'll start adding weapons to the robot and figure out what we think is the best loadout for the robot and how to mount the weapons, because there are ways to reinforce. Some of it is rod forcing, some of it is just using shaped armor cubes, but I'll get into that in a moment. Okay, I finished up the third layer of armor, and we're just going to go ahead and take a little look around the tank. As I look at it from underneath and from the sides, all the arrow rods, they kind of look spider web-like, and that's kind of what they're doing. The whole robot's being tied together, it's knit together. Next we'll go ahead and add some weapons. For this build, I think that we're going to use the top laser vaporizer. Use blaster because I have more of those. We're just going to use it basically a single weapon type. When using SMGs or something, or lasers as they're called now, it's best to usually go for redundancy, especially in a tanky build. I put 12 lasers on this robot, mostly for redundancy, but next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit more damage redirection again on the gun mounts. So what I just did here is I mounted this on a prism that is facing backwards, and I'm going to put this cube back. So any damage hitting here, it won't go straight into this block and destroy the gun. It'll have to go around through 1, 2, 3, and then into a fourth block. It just makes the damage take a longer route, and it doesn't make your robot live any longer, but it does help keep the guns on it for a little bit longer than they would otherwise. So we can go ahead and do this all around the robot, like right here. If these blocks get hit, it won't destroy this block quite as quickly. We can do it up here. It's a bit gratuitous, but it does help keep the robot together for a little bit longer than it would otherwise. So now that we've mounted all of our lasers, I think we have enough room left to mount some plasmas. So I'm going to go ahead and make a couple of weapon mounts here. And we'll use the Plasma Ravager. So I've got 3 Plasma Ravagers mounted. If we look here at the tooltip, we can see a couple of stats about it. We can see its CPU, its mass damage, etc. If we look down at the second to last item, it says max fire rate count, 5 guns. We've only got 3, so we're not going to get max fire rate out of these. And I don't think I'm going to add more plasmas. So it's not going to be full damage, but it will last longer and it won't eat up our power as quickly. So we'll go ahead and give this robot a try. Drive around on the test map, fire our guns. Yeah, so the plasmas fire fairly slowly, but I think this is a good grenade mortar style weapon. We can try overclocking. Stunt tank. So it seems like it drives pretty well. I'll go ahead and take it into an AI deathmatch next. So I'm just going to kill a couple robots and see how well this works. I like the way it drives. It seems like it'll be fairly sturdy, and we'll just test and see how our rod forcing works against these robots. Yeah, definitely like having the Ravagers there. Okay, I think I'm going to call this a success. It seems like it holds together pretty well, even when we're taking damage. So, we lost one of the tank treads, but it didn't really cause much damage to the chassis, which is good. So, I'll go head back to the garage now. So you must never forget to take pride in your work. Give it a good paint job, even though I only got the non-premium colors, but I think I'm going to make it look nice. So I finished up the paint job, and now it's time to give your robot a name. I think I'm going to call this one the M60 Patton, after the US tank. thank you for coming to watch today. I've had a fun time building this robot. It will be on the CRF underneath my name, Agile42, and also the named M60 patent for the robot. If you guys have any suggestions on how I should do my future videos, please go ahead and leave a comment about that. If you'd like to see me do something else, another tutorial, showcase some of my other robots, I'd be more than delighted to comply. So, thank you for watching, have a nice day,